60 million Americans under 50 say they're alone.
This is the most connected century of human beings so far, yet we are the most isolated. Being connected is meaningless in terms of online connection.
Meet Gabor Kadas, CEO of Friending Inc., an app built to get people off their phones and into real life. For 30 years, he is the president and CEO of HumanSoft Inc., developing 50-plus games for major publishers, also on the advisory board at Aliquo Simulations, behind the award-winning Fligby.
People live in a falsehood that they have friends, and comes Friday night, they're alone, they have nowhere to go. There's the right way and the wrong way of using technology. Our whole app is about real-life interaction, and we need to verify that you've done something together in real life.
That gap between perceived connection and actual connection, have you seen that play out in your own teams or the people you've worked with at all?
One of the things we try to do is to make sure that
Welcome back to another episode of the Dark Arts of Software Engineering Team Optimization. I'm Franz, and this is my co-host, Cal Johnson. We're the founders of Hellenic, and we build engineering teams that actually function for startups by combining agile training with psychology, neuroscience, and semantics. This is our show about what really makes teams tick. Our guest today is Gabor Kadas. Gabor, you're a Hungarian-born software development, founder of HumanSoft and co-founder of Friending. Been shipping games for 30 years, Tomb Raider, Pac-Man, SpongeBob, multiple Disney titles. But the reason we brought Gabor on the show now is what he's building now, Friending, a social app designed to combat the loneliness epidemic by doing something almost no social platform does, deliberately getting people off their phones and into the same room. Every user is identity verified, chat is intentionally limited, and the app can actually confirm when two people meet in person. It's a software company that's engineered to make you use the software less. Gabor, welcome to the Dark Arts.
Thank you.
It's great. So I'll just jump right in. I mean, you've been, as we mentioned earlier, building software for a very long time through HumanSoft. And now you're building an app whose entire purpose is to get people to stop using it and go talk to a real human. How do you get from building virtual worlds to building something that pushes people back into the real world?
I guess because of my game development background and for the sins I made, perhaps I need to repent and push people off from the platform to the real world. But on a more serious note, I think COVID and everything else that's going on around the world and having a teenage daughter somehow feels wrong. People are stuck on their mobile devices and don't have the basic social skills. So in my mind, I'm 60, the world has turned upside down. So that's what I'm trying to solve.
You live this kind of paradox, of course, moving between countries, accumulating thousands of online connections, and as you mentioned, right, feeling more isolated. Was there a specific moment where you realized this was a problem technology created and one technology could solve?
Yes, absolutely. I met my co-founder, Jolt, about 3, 4 years ago. He was already doing a basic version of this. And because from my personal experience, I was alone a lot, especially in my younger days, I realized that this is something worth funding because that's what dominantly, I would say, 50% of my involvement is the funding part to get to where we are. We have an iOS version, and the other 50% is coming up with ideas and tweaking it and making sure it does what we think it should do.
I guess, did you build your team that built this specifically looking for people that were interested in solving this problem, or were you just looking for a developer?
And basically, it was easy for us in some sense because we have human software development resources. So we use that to help with the app development. So we didn't really need to look for developers in this sense. Although my co-founder, Jolt, is the CTO. So he's leading the development and being helped by resources from HumanSoft.
And now, so most social apps on the market, if not all of them, right, are designed to keep people scrolling. And I'm sure some of the games you've developed over the years, right, it's all about keeping people engaged and keeping them on the platform. And so now you're transitioning, right, to deliberately limiting the chat and pushing people offline as soon as you can. So as your software development team, that's probably similar to like a team building a race car and then putting a governor on it, right? You can make it go faster. You can make it do more, but you're purposefully designing it to do less. So how does that hit with the team? Just curious.
Using your analogy, the dangers of going faster, you want to limit the dangers. So it's exactly the same sort of thinking behind it. We want to limit the dangers that using the app like 24 hours a day practically has on a human being, because if you look at the cavemen people, or they were also in groups from day one, and it's only in the last, I don't know, 30 years perhaps, give or take, that internet has really isolated everybody, and the icing on the cake was COVID, which forced people not to go into the office, even the ones who were mentally not prepared to do that. I worked from home all the time, so there was no change for me. But if you enjoyed the social environment that your workplace provided, then it's a big hit for you in some sense, mentally speaking, that, hey, now I'm at home spending 8 hours of my workday on Zoom and spending the other 8 hours perhaps watching Netflix or something. So it's really bad.
Yeah, and you've said that on friending, right? A prolonged online conversation is basically like it's a failure in a sense. And so with this new philosophy, like, can you actually walk us through a little bit of like the user experience, like how you are taking someone from the app and getting them in person and kind of what that experience looks like?
Yes, we have changed our model slightly, but the thought hasn't changed. Basically, in order to be on the app, you need to register and you need to verify yourself with a third-party app. Now, the reasoning behind that, it's not an age verification, it's not a background check, it's a very simple verification. Are you who you say you are? Meaning, there are no catfishing, no bots, etc. Because on similar apps, people would fake profiles, fake photos, etc. You cannot do that on our app. So we have realized that now that people have signed up, there's practically very limited or no interaction between the parties. So what we're doing now is we're picking actually New York to curate various events. These could be dinner events, hiking, yoga, museum visits, etc. And once we have enough people in that area interested in that activity, we will actually open that up and announce a date for that activity to happen. So that's how we're actually hand-holding, I guess, everybody to move off the app, because there were no interaction on the app. And we realized they need more help because they're so used to the social isolation. So we say, hey, what is your interest? Pick from 4 things. Once enough people is about 5-10 people. So we're not talking about a huge group here. We'll actually organize the activity and make sure it goes off well. So that's what we're actually proactively telling people to get off their screen, because telling them nicely didn't work. So, so they need more help, is
Yeah.
basically our conclusion.
Yeah, I think that's good too. Like the groups of 5 to 10, right? Keep it intimate and actually probably have a better chance of making a connection that matters in that size group.
Yes.
How do people continue using friending? Like after they've kind of met friends at the live event and they have a group of friends, is there, what's the stickiness? What's the reason for them to come back and continue using it?
Well, we plan to continue organizing these events depending on the demand. Secondly, at the moment, it's a free app, so this part doesn't apply. We plan to charge a minimum monthly fee of about $5, which is a cup of coffee, but we feel bad about that even, because what we're doing once we have enough people is approaching various I don't know, coffee shops, small communities where, hey, if somebody signed up on Friending, they get a 10% discount. So hopefully you can actually generate a more revenue from the discounts than what you're paying, even if you're just talking about a single coffee shop where you get, let's say, 50 cents back after your 10th coffee in that month. You got your $5 back. So what we definitely want to avoid is people deleting the app, and we want to avoid that people are feel cheated because we're paying $5 for an app that we're not actually using perhaps that month. So that is our way of keeping people on the app, because they get a discount at certain retailers, and by engaging them in various events.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting that a lot of apps are trying to extract value from the user, right? Where you're actually trying to actively give it back.
Yes, our whole philosophy is to give back to the community. And yes, there are costs involved, so we do need to eventually charge people. But I'm hoping that we can make this charge a win-win situation.
You mentioned that like every user on Friending is verified. So there's no badge system where some verified, some aren't. It's like everybody or nobody.
Yes.
Why did that become a non-negotiable for you and kind of centerpiece of the app?
As you said, it's a core piece of the app. If you look at how all the dating apps, friending apps started, there was no verification at all. There were a lot of bot catfishing, ghosting, etc. And now, I guess I can mention Tinder started to do the badge system, and they did a very poor job of it. If you read the comments and research, basically, it is very easy to scam the verification system they have. And their problem is that they have, which is the good side in some respect, they have millions of users, but you suddenly can't change the rules. You suddenly can't say, hey, we're kicking you off because that would cost them millions of dollars a month if you're not verified. Our advantage and disadvantage is we're building this community from the ground up. So from the day one, you have to verify yourself. Yes, we have a small community, and that is an issue. I would be lying otherwise. But the benefit of that, you can only build a community if you don't change the rules halfway through it. And that is their biggest issue, that they have shareholders, etc. And you can't tell them that, hey, we're going to reduce our revenue by 90% or whatever if they're estimated that only 10% will actually verify themselves. So they don't have a choice. They're trying to come up with makeshift solutions that do not work.
I guess like with knowing that everybody's real on a platform, I feel like would also change, I mean, how people interact with that platform. Have you seen like in the kind of tests that you've done with yours, have you seen any kind of big differences in how people interact?
As I said, we have limited interaction, but although it's a hassle, interesting from our sign-up experience, about 1/3 of them get verified. The other ones quit because they
Huh.
don't trust the platform, or they're too scared to do that because of the various scams, in the past. And we're not the one doing the verification. Verification is done by Persona, who does government verification, ID verifications a lot. So it's not all we get back is a yes or a no type of approval. Just as if you hand over your credit card to a merchant in a store, all you get is accepted or not. So there's the same philosophy what we get back. And yes, people are scared, but once we have enough people on the community, they will realize the benefit, meaning this is the only safe community. This is the only community that I know of who actually verifies people.
Yeah, no,
And yes, it's a slower process to grow, but I think it's going to act as a magnet once there are enough people and talk about it, that, hey, this is a safe platform to be on.
yeah, like I said, perhaps a smaller process to grow, but the quality of users is going to be much higher because of that.
That's right, yes.
I mean, like, the other kind of thing that's really cool about the platform is you can confirm when two users' phones are physically near each other. So, like, you can actually prove that a meeting actually happened. That's a feature most social apps would never build because it would, legitimately reveal how few connections actually lead to real interaction. What made you want that kind of accountability in the product?
Accountability is exactly what we wanted. Basically, want to make sure that the situation is real. I mean, give you an example from LinkedIn, which I use regularly on work. I needed an introduction to somebody, and I realized that one of the LinkedIn connection whom I actually known really well knows this person. So I write to him and say, and he comes back saying, I have no idea. I must have met him at the show. Okay, so being connected is meaningless in terms of just an online connection, because he had no idea who I was, asking for help with. And that is exactly what we're trying to avoid, that if you look at real life and you forget computers and internet, in my childhood, I met my friends a couple of times a week or whatever. So you actually knew them, you got together, and you can't really call an individual friend if you never met the person, which does unfortunately happen. I was talking to somebody and he was saying, my best friend is so and so. And it turns out that they never met.
It's very weird. Yeah. I've had people that I've known that actually started dating other people that they haven't met.
Exactly. And people live in a falsehood that they have friends. And comes Friday night, they're alone. They have nowhere to go.
No, I feel like the accountability of the product is very cool, particularly because like I feel like a platform like Hinge, for example, who's like, big tagline now is like the only dating app, designed to make you stop using the app. I feel like even that is, in comparison, is a misnomer, is a lie. Like yours is actually one that is, but with all the fake people and so on and so forth on a platform like Hinge, it's not really built to get people off it. It's built to make people continue using it.
That's right. And that is where our next step is to look into retailers who could support us. When you do an offline activity, buying coffee or whatever, you actually get rewarded. So we're putting our money where our mouth is in some respect, because we're actually figuring out solutions how you could reward it by doing offline activities, whereas most other apps reward if you do online things. And that is why we are trying to keep you on the app. Yes, eventually we'll be charging something like $5 a month, but even that we feel guilty about in some respect, because if you're away or haven't made a new friend that month, I don't want you to feel that you've been treated out of your money. So we're very conscious about how we, I guess, tell people that, hey, sign up here because it's going to be a good thing for you. You got your money back, you find friends, etc. in the real world.
Right. And the people in the real world are people that you can be safe with because you know that they are real humans that are verified. They're not catfish. I don't know if you think about it this way, but it's almost like your verification system is essentially building psychological safety for strangers.
Yes, and one of the features that will actually have special design for female users, I've been talking to a few of them, is that let's say you meet in a coffee shop and you feel uncomfortable. Now, this feature isn't introduced yet, but using the Bluetooth stuff that we have programmed, you will be able to buy I don't know, a Bluetooth keyring or a bracelet or some Bluetooth gadget, because the problem with the iPhone is that it will only communicate with Bluetooth unless the screen is on. But if you tap the screen 3 times and you have this Bluetooth, I don't know, bracelet or something, that will be programmed to either alert the police, alert a friend, or alert anybody in the neighborhood we're friending. So we're actually trying to create a very safe environment, even though we have verified you. But as I said, verification is not a background check. It's just to say, hey, this is how you look like, and you're called Franz or whatever. But you could be anybody. And so, even if you feel uncomfortable, there is a second stage of alertness or alert that you can send out. And basically, we picked a coffee shop as a good example because typically, perhaps that's where you would meet for the first time. And because of that, and again, because of the offline activity, we were actually selling coffee on our website. And the fun thing about our coffee, other than it's a good coffee, but it's nothing special, is the packaging, I think, is really nice. That's in San Francisco. But other than the nice packaging, the key feature is this backside QR code. And what that does is when you order the coffee, you can type in a message, say, hey, thanks for the podcast, Franz. And then you basically receive the coffee and you need to download the app to read my message and the messaging in that QR code. So we are trying to, I guess, market the app, but we're also thinking of real gifts, real world things. And there are like happy birthday packaging, various cities. There was like St. Patrick's Day for earlier last month, or it's still this month. Okay, so we do various packaging, and we're thinking of how real people can connect. Birthdays, obviously Christmas when it comes along, etc., etc., various other Father's Days coming up or Mother Days coming up. So we're thinking of various real world items that can connect other people. And we figured coffee is something like a major part of most people's life. But we also did matcha as well if you drink tea.
Nice. And then next will be pizza, and that's where Franz can come in with his secret pizza society.
Yes, as soon as you can download it on the app, that would be great.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'd like to change gears just a little bit and talk kind of more about your team that's helping you build Friending. So I know your co-founder, you mentioned earlier, your co-founder, CTO, based in Hungary, and the team's based there as well. And I know you've been running distributed teams for close to 30 years now, so it's nothing new to you. You were already working from home when COVID kind of made it different for everyone else. But is there anything specific that you've learned about making and building a remote team that works, that that you see a lot of companies either figure out way too late or never figure out?
Yes, I think a key to any software development is specification. And the clearer specification you have, the better the software will be. And it is easier to clarify a specification if your team is next door or just, or whatever. So it is vital for a remote team to build a specification for the client, for the app, that is absolutely crystal clear, no misunderstanding, because asking is more of a process than say, hey, did you mean this or that? So, you have to make sure that you're very clear. And as a result, it allows us to keep our costs down and deliver the software on time because there's back and forth during the design process. But once we have locked in the design process, it's pretty much what you're going to get. I'm not saying, especially with games, I have found that things work on paper that don't work in real life. So I would say it's not 100%, but it's close enough.
Yeah. It's funny. So you're building this app, right? That's all about bringing people together, and then you and the team are an ocean apart. So you ever think about that? There's some irony there, right?
Yes, it's sort of like it's an interesting paradox. I'm trying to basically the team existed before friending, so it seemed the best solution to use the team, to develop the app.
Yeah. Well, and they're all together too, So I suppose that they're practicing what you preach.
Indeed, yes.
Excellent.
It's like you pointed out before that like 60 million Americans under 50 say they're alone, and that you think that the real number is higher because people won't admit it. And we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but like as someone who's been building software for 3 decades, do you feel like specifically the industry has a responsibility here? Like, is this loneliness epidemic caused by the industry? I guess
I
is.
am not sure. I'm not convinced that it's the gaming industry. Certainly, that's part of it. But I think people are using technology for the wrong thing. I mean, look at what we're doing. Where I could be in Hungary, where I'm actually in North Carolina, but we could connect. And this is the irony that this is the most connected century of human beings so far, where you actually carry the technology in your pocket to be connected. Yet we are the most isolated people, ever in terms of being alone. As I said, even when we were cavemen, people lived in groups. Okay, no technology there. And this is what I'm saying is that we're using technology to connect people. So there's the right way and the wrong way of using technology. I could draw the same analogy with the gun. Is the gun at fault, or is the people who's using the gun for the wrong reason? I'm not going to say what the right or wrong reason is. I'm just going to leave it at that.
You said that there's the right way and the wrong way of using the technology. Do you think that part of the reason that we've kind of ended up on the wrong way is because of how fast this kind of technology has evolved? Like I feel like we haven't had a lot of time to think about what is the right way and wrong way. How does this affect people? I feel like with a lot of other technological advancements, they happened over a much longer period of time. Like even the car, right, gave us time to build highways and really connect the United States. Same thing with the steam engine. But it feels like the technology now is happening so fast that we don't have time to think about it and really consider the repercussions and the best ways of using it.
Yes, absolutely. I was thinking about that, that if somebody perhaps from the 18th century sort of visits the 19th century, very little changes. He may even not know that he's a different century. But even if somebody from the 20th century, early part of that century, visits the 21st century, there's a drastic change. And I think the change is just speeding up with AI. I think what we've seen is nothing yet in terms of whether it's isolation. There's a robot coming out called Neo, I think its name. It's for like $10,000, which is a lot of money. Today is 10,000. 2 years time it will be 2,000, and basically that's a humanoid AI-driven robot in your home, could do the cleaning, daily chores, speak to you, etc. So you think you have a friend because it never argues, always agrees, does everything you ask for. But in that respect, it's going to get worse because at the moment you have a virtual friend, maybe ChatGPT or other people, and then in 5 years or less, you'll have some physical thing in your home that you will call a friend. And that is why projections say that about 2/3 of Americans will be alone in about 5 to 10 years' time.
It's terrible.
It is indeed, yes. And we're trying to, and there is a trend, by the way, to stop this, although it's a small trend. It's called deplug. Feel free to Google it. It's basically activities, whether it's a dinner activity, hiking, whatever, where you're not allowed to take your phone or any other digital communication device, because you just want to be cut off from all that and basically be with real people and not be interrupted by others.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. A few years ago, I organized an event. It was called a beefsteak. Here in New York City, there's a tradition dating back to like the 1920s of these things called beefsteaks, and what they were was basically like private events where usually it was mostly men were served unlimited amounts of beer and unlimited amounts of steak. But the thing was that they would not give the men napkins. They'd wear smocks and they'd have to wash their hands on their smocks. Anyways, for the Museum of Food and Drink, I did a recreation of this event, and I specifically gave people no way to wash their hands during the course of the event for exactly the reason that you looked at. Once you have greasy hands, you are not going to pick up your phone, right? So it was less a prohibition and more the way the event itself was designed forced people to not use their phones. And it worked exactly as you would expect. Now, people that were strangers started talking to each other. There was communication even between tables, and it became a much more social event just because we removed the ability for people to use their phone.
Yes, I mean, if you go to a diner, you see a family of four perhaps for breakfast or whatever. They all sit quietly in front of the screen. So my question is, why did you go out in the first place? I'm sure
Yeah.
you could have cooked the egg at home.
One of the other things that you mentioned earlier was that human beings are coded to be in tribes. But now someone can have a ton of like, Facebook or LinkedIn connections and still be alone on a Friday night. That gap between like perceived connection and actual connection feels like it really applies like even inside companies. Have you seen that play out in your own teams or the people you've worked with at all?
One of the things we try to do is to make sure that we actually have communication outside of a team with another team, and basically people get to know the people they work with, because we realize that connecting online is good for simple questions or whatever, but the real connection between people are made once you actually meet face to face. That is why we built friending for face to face activities, because online connection is not real. It's good for communicating, it's good for watching perhaps TV shows, but it doesn't replace the real interaction between two people.
Yeah, I feel like it's a very good simulation of it, but you lose a lot of the the kind of the je ne sais quoi, right?
And that is going to get, the simulation will improve, but it will still be a simulation. The simulation may take a 3D shaped robot in your home, but it's still not real. So the improvement, just like going from, I don't know, regular TV to 4K, it's a better picture, but it's still a simulation.
Yeah. I just one other thing that I just kind of want to touch on for a second is the using coffee as a marketing funnel. How you're selling it as Amazon with QR codes that carry personal messages. I think that's really cool because it's not just like a growth hack, right? It's actually designing a moment of human connection. Where, like, I'd love to hear kind of the motivation and kind of origin of that idea.
Yes, basically, origin comes from we were trying to pick an item that most people enjoy, and we were trying to relate that to the place where they would meet first, which is a coffee shop, and we try to relate it to a physical product, not just a simulated, coffee ad, so to say. So this way, it's a gift item. Gift means that you have a connection with that individual. Maybe they are further away than your neighborhood, but at least you're thinking about them, and you're sending them instead of sending them an e-card, you're sending them a physical product that also contains a message that an e-card would potentially contain.
Bringing us full circle, Gabor, to something we were discussing right before we actually started recording the show, and that was that you're going to start looking for capital, right? Very, very soon. And I would love to know a little more about kind of how you plan to pitch investors on something that's, very opposite to probably a lot of the pitches that they're normally hearing when somebody's coming to them with an engagement platform like this.
Yes, and it's not easy. I will answer your question in a minute, but let me give you a gaming example. About 25 years ago, we came up with a first-person shooter, which we could, by the way, never find a market for, I'll be honest. But it was in every single newspaper from Japan to UK and whatever. And that game was a first-person shooter, except at those days, graphics were used as eye candy and had no function within the game other than being eye candy. So we came up with first-person shooter where you had an enemy that was colorblind, so you needed to change the lights in order to be able to, escape or outrun the enemy. There was enemy where you could never see, but you could see the shadow of the enemy. So that's the problem, is that you're trying to innovate something. And getting back to your question sort of more specifically, it is very difficult to convince people. Everybody's looking for something new, but then they try to do market analysis and say, hey, I need to capture a certain percentage of the market. How will that be a return on our investment? And that is the risk you take when you're trying to innovate. But I think you will be able to find people who understand that the world is going in the wrong direction. When I was a kid and did something wrong, I was grounded, couldn't use my bike. Today, you send your teenage kid out path, to get him or her out of the room to use the bike. So, there's obviously something wrong here. I don't know. There is, I think, the deep plug movement. The fact that there were over 1,000 applicants, it's called Startup Grind in Redwood City, starting next week, and only 150 people can pitch. So out of, that's, we were, I don't know, in the first 10%, give or take, of that. So I think people understand that something needs to be changed, and people always eventually launch new things. I'll give you a personal example. Airbnb, I had great issues with, would I ever let my apartment out or house for an Airbnb? I was concerned about it being trashed. People now are more comfortable, renting their house out for a short term. So people get used to it. And we have some people who have issues with verification. About 1/3 of the people who sign up verified. What happened to the 2/3? Obviously, they were too concerned about getting their ID out. They may have been doing this while they were in bed and their ID was somewhere else, or they were just pretty much scared. Who are we that we're asking for their ID? So eventually things will change, and eventually people will realize that what we're doing is good, and we can actually slowly demonstrate it with traction, not with revenue because we're not charging anything. So Yes, I am concerned, but I hope there are people out there who believe that loneliness is a true epidemic that needs to be handled in some way.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope you're right. There are people out there that care. And who knows, maybe some of them will be listening to this today. And if that is the case, for both, I would say any investors that want to get in touch with you, where's the best place to reach you there? And then also if someone's just interested in Friendling and wants to know more about that, where can they go?
And basically, friending.com is our website. You can send us email at hello@friending.com. And the unusual thing about sending an email to us, it doesn't receive an AI response, it receives a human response.
As
So
it should.
we're not using AI to respond to emails.
Excellent. Well, Gabor, we thank you for joining us today. It's been fun and best of luck.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, happy to follow up, once we actually get something more to talk about.
Yes.
That'd be
That
awesome.
would be great. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you for your listeners as well.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank
Thank
you.
you.